then we have discussed even band theory of solids, semiconducting materials. Just in crystallography, in the crystal, the important questions are describe several crystal systems, Bravais lattices, and the product diffraction method. Generally, these may come as essay questions. And then crystal defects, 40 defects in metals, ionic crystals, and fainted defects. These three are there. So, these are questions, and in semiconductor materials, concentration of holes in semiconductor, concentration of electrons, expression also, and the Hall effect also sometimes you will be looking as an essay question, or remaining maybe short answer. And now today we discuss unit 4. In this you have magnetic materials and superconductivity. You can ask also any doubts, and also unit 5, in which you have fibers and fiber optics and lasers. So in magnetic materials, share the screen. Is this visible, students?
Yes, sir.
So in magnetic materials, it's purely a descriptive chapter, and first you may get short answer as the classification of magnetic materials. You may get but too much, I don't think so. Basically, the materials based on the magnetic properties, they are classified into 5 categories. One is diamagnetic, paramagnetic, ferromagnetic, antiferromagnetic, and ferrimagnetic materials. This you may get for 5 marks in as one question. So in a table also you can write what actually diamagnetic materials are. These are not, they don't have any permanent magnetic dipoles. Even in the applied field, the magnetic field is applied to a diamagnetic material. Some magnetic dipoles are created in the direction opposite to the direction of the field. They repel the magnetic lines, of course. So the susceptibility is negative, and even you apply strong magnetic field, they will not allow the magnetic lines of force to pass through this. These are the properties of diamagnetic materials, silica, glass, plywood, all these are typical examples of these materials. In coming to paramagnetic, these permanent magnetic dipoles are there, but they are randomly distributed. When applied field is given, then these magnetic dipoles, they align in the direction of the field, giving rise to certain magnetic properties. The susceptibility is slightly positive, and it depends on temperature. When the temperature rises, the paramagnetic dipole in the paramagnetic substitute the magnetic dipole radiation, and they lose their magnetic behavior, and the susceptibility is phi is equal to C by T. This is for paramagnetic. Coming to the third one, in at least these 4 or 5 points you should write. Coming to ferromagnetic materials are permanent magnets, and these are the materials which exhibit spontaneous magnetization. That is, even applied field is 0, there are some magnetic dipoles aligned in one direction, causing certain magnetization in this direction, and these are called as ferromagnetic materials. And they follow Curie-Vissla given by chi is equal to C by T minus Tc. They readily accept all magnetic lines of force and behave as a strong magnet. They depend, ferromagnetic behavior depends on temperature. When temperature rises, the temperature known as Curie temperature, the ferromagnetic dipoles, they take random orientation, they lose their magnetic behavior and it becomes paramagnetic. This temperature is called as Curie temperature. And Curie-Vissla is chi C by T minus Tc, and they have very high positive susceptibility values. So this is ferromagnetic material. Then the next class is anti with the examples. Ferromagnetic is iron, cobalt, nickel. They are examples of ferromagnetic. And coming to the next category, they are anti-ferromagnetic materials. These are the materials in which the magnetic dipoles are aligned oppositely with same magnitude. You see the figure. So the net magnetization is 0. So they depend on neat temperature, the temperature at which an anti-ferromagnetic material becomes ferromagnetic. Directly, the stage will be anti-ferro to paramagnetic material. At neat temperature, they can convert to paramagnetic. So here magnetic moments are there, but they are in equal numbers with opposite signs and equal magnitudes. Because of that, they will not contribute for high magnetic values. The susceptibility is slightly positive and it is very small. This is the antiferromagnetic material. Now you have ferrimagnetic material. So in ferromagnetic material, there is a slight difference. These are the materials So these are the materials, ferromagnetic materials, in which the magnetic moments are anti-parallel, but with different magnitudes. So because of this, in ferromagnetic materials, the magnetic dipoles anti-parallel with the different magnitudes. Because of that, they possess net magnetization due to anti-parallel dipoles. You should write this diagram. See here, different regions magnetic moments are there, but with different magnitudes. So you should take the vector sum of all these, so which decides the magnetic behavior of the material. The reds are the special case of these materials, and uh, they above Curie temperature they have paramagnetic behavior, and these ferrites Curie law is not valid for these materials. So if you see all this in the table also you can represent. In ferromagnetic material, all dipoles are aligned in one direction, giving rise to strong magnetization below TC. Anti-ferromagnetic materials, it will be like that. They have magnetic moments, but equal number in anti-parallel. And for ferrimagnet, they are anti-parallel with different magnitude. Paramagnet, they are randomly distributed. So this is the difference between all these four materials. And diamagnetic materials, of course, see in the diagram you can see in the presence of the field, the magnetic dipoles align in the direction opposite to the direction of the field. And the utility is very clear. This you may get as an important question for describe the classification of magnetic materials. At least to 5 points, 5 to 6 points with the examples, with the diagrams you should write. This is one question. Then you have very important, which is Wies molecular field theory of ferromagnet. This also you will be getting. So only salient features of Wies molecular field theory. According to Wies theory, why ferromagnetic materials show so spontaneous magnetization? It is because the internal molecular field is also responsible for the alignment of magnetic dipoles in the direction of the field. So in the presence of the field, the effective field can be, it is the sum of external field and internal molecular field. That is H plus HA. And HA is again, it is lambda into M, where lambda is molecular field coefficient and M is the magnetization. So the effective magnetic field it is represented by H plus lambda F. First you should write this expression. This is the first feature of this molecular field theory. Again, this is the concept. From this theory, in ferromagnetic materials, the electrons in certain shells they have unbalanced spins, and due to these unbalanced spins, there exist certain interactions between the adjacent atoms, and these interactions are called as exchange interactions. And these interactions, in total, according to quantum theory, can be described in terms of exchange integral J. And these interactions occur only in elements like iron, cobalt, nickel. It is not possible in all elements. So these, because of these interactions, the magnetic moments of unpaired electrons they interpenetrate with each other, they interact with each other, which gives rise to certain internal molecular field. And from quantum theory, if Si, Sj are the spins of ith and jth electrons respectively, and phi ij is the angle between them, the internal molecular field is represented by minus 2j sigma Si Sj cos phi ij. And phi ij is the angle between the magnetic moments of these fields. This point, third point, you should write this one. And again, according to this theory, the exchange integral J is a function of A by R, where A is the interatomic spacing and R is the unfilled shell radius. So once you plot a graph, taking A by R along x-axis and J along in the figure, it is A by D is given, but you replace D with R. That's how also I told. You should recollect this one. And once you plot a graph, if you see this for ferromagnetic materials, this relation is positive. So because this relation is positive, that means they are very active. Exchange integral is very active for these materials, and because of that, they exhibit spontaneous magnetization, and they follow Curie-Wies's law given by C by T minus T. So in the exam, suppose you get describe this molecular field theory. If it is given for 5 marks, you should stop it. Sometimes what happens, they reduce an expression Curie-Wies's law for a ferromagnetic material, then you should go for this derivation also. As I said, the effective magnetic field is sum of internal and external fields, which is given by H plus lambda F. Then you should do this derivation. But magnetization expression is mu naught mu square in H by T, and rearrange the terms, and finally you can obtain susceptibility C by T minus T. So specifically, if it is asked, then you should derive this expression. Otherwise, you restrict to V small is the field theory, basing on the question. Suppose the same question, entire question is given for 8 marks, then better you add. So you decide like that. So this is an important question in this chapter. And also, V's domain theory is also sometimes you may get for 5 to 6 marks. So, according to Weiss, the same Weiss has proposed the domain theory. In ferromagnetic materials, the electrons of neighboring atoms they align themselves in small atomic regions known as domains. So, if you see the diagram, so randomly the domains are aligned in different regions, and these regions are called as domains. Each domain is separated by a small thin wall, which is called as domain wall, and each domain consists of 10 to the power of 23 atoms with their magnetic moments in the same direction. In the absence of the field, all they are randomly oriented and it will not exhibit any magnetization like this. But when external magnetic field is given, this domain structure breaks down and all magnetic dipoles they align in the direction of the field, giving rise to strong magnetization. And these are only for understanding sake, you need not draw these diagrams. So, in the presence of the field, its domain structure slowly the domain walls they move in the direction of the field, giving rise to strong magnetization. So it becomes a ferromagnetic substance. And as the temperature increases at QD temperature, again these magnetic spins they become random, and domain structure breaks down. A ferromagnet becomes paramagnetic. This you should write the base domain theory. And another question describe ferromagnetic hysteresis. This also just I'll read the points. You go through this one. So the graph that represents the variation of external magnetic field, sorry, magnetization with respect to external magnetic field is called as magnetic hysteresis or BH law. So when magnetic field is applied, M value, you replace M with B also because in some textbooks it is given as B also. So the B value initially it is very slow, then it rapidly increases, reaches a maximum value. There you will be getting saturated magnetization. All dipoles align in the direction of the field, giving rise to high magnetic values. And this relation is not linear. If you decrease the field, then the magnetization it takes some another path and it reaches the value MR even for zero field. Here zero field is there, but here some magnetization is left. So this is the spontaneous magnetization. Even for zero of field, some magnetization left over in the material. This is called as magnetic remittance. If you further decrease the field, then it's a field known as the HC, which is called as coercive field. The remaining magnetic moments also take random orientation, and the ferromagnet becomes ferromagnet. This is called as coercivity or coercive field. If you reverse the field and increase the field, again in the opposite direction, it gets saturated. Again, if you decrease the field, it takes some another path. It takes some another path and it completes the curve, which is called as hysteresis curve. So these points, what actually hysteresis curve, what is saturated magnetization, magnetic resonance, and the coercivity. If you need the graph, you should represent. Also, you may get for 4 to 5 marks magnetic hysteresis. And this also sometimes soft and hard magnetic materials. So these points you should write. Once one you can understand the remaining also exactly opposite. So hard magnetic, soft magnetic materials are the materials which can be easily magnetized or demagnetized. Exactly opposite is hard magnetic materials. You read these points exactly. Sometimes you may get these hard and soft magnetic materials. And we can this the diagram. They have small hysteresis loop area soft magnetic materials, whereas the hard magnetic materials they have large hysteresis loop area like that. You have all this. Then ferrites. So ferrites are the modified structures of iron. These are examples of ferrimagnetism. And exactly what are the properties of ferrimagnetic materials you should represent. And they have the structure. They have the chemical formula X Fe2O4, where X is the divalent metal like manganese, zinc, etc. These are the ferrites, and they are the ceramic mixtures of certain materials. And this is the ferrite structure. Only its concept. Units are consisting of 32 oxygen ions, 24 metal ions, like that. You should remember this. And the applications of ferrites. They used to produce frequency of ultrasonic waves, increase the sensitivity like that. Some you may get mention what describe ferrites and mention any applications, or as a short answer also mention any 4 applications of ferrites also will be getting. Generally, this can be taken as a short answer only. So the three main questions here in this chapter. Sometimes you may get classification of materials, dia, para, ferro, antiferro, antiferric. But this molecular field theory, this domain theory, and magnetic history. These are the important. Sometimes only for 4 or 5 marks, distinguish soft and hard magnetic materials. Don't get confused. Magnetic materials in the type 1, type 2 superconductors, both are different. So these are to be covered in the chapter magnetic materials. You have any doubts, students? Somebody respond, please.
No, sir.
Superconductors, shall I explain in brief, 5 to 10 minutes?
Okay, sir.
Open the PPT. Wait, further. Is this visible, students? Screen is visible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So superconductors, one essay question is general properties of superconductors. I gave around 9 to 10 properties. So at least sometimes specifically, what is the effect of magnetic field on a superconductor, like that? That is one question. And the types of superconductors is another one. Then BCS theory, or that is also can be, generally it will be divided into 2 questions. For 5 marks, BCS theory will be given. Hardly sometimes you may get a high temperature superconductivity. Only 4 questions are there. So superconductivity, it is a property of certain materials. They conduct electric current without any resistance. So when the temperature is cooled, when the temperature reaches a critical temperature, then the electrical resistance becomes zero, and it conducts electric current without any resistance. This state is called as superconducting state. And mercury, you observe when it is cooled to 4.2 Kelvin, the temperature, at the temperature, the electrical resistance drops to zero, and it conducts current without any resistance. This is called as superconductivity, and the temperature at which the electrical resistance becomes zero is called as the transition temperature or critical temperature. So these are the properties observed at the transition temperature. Then some properties, general properties of superconductors. First one is resistance. At the transition temperature, electrical resistance drops to zero. Then this figure you should explain. And the temperature at which a material converting into a superconductor is called as transition temperature. If you see the graph, for a normal metal, even at 0 Kelvin, some resistance is there. But for a superconductor, at the critical temperature, the resistance becomes zero. So from 0 to critical temperature, it is a superconductor, and above this temperature, it is a normal conductor. Then the third property is when high magnetic field is applied, then this magnetic field destroys the superconductivity. So this at any temperature, the minimum value of the magnetic field required to destroy superconductivity is called as critical magnetic field. So when the applied field reaches to critical field, then the superconducting material loses its superconductivity. And mention that relation also. Let's see, sometimes 3 or 4 days back we got a question on this formula. Hc is equal to h naught into 1 minus t square by t square. Transition temperature and h naught temperature is given. You should calculate critical field like that. If 3 parameters are given, you should calculate this fourth one. So this is third property. Then diamagnetic property. Superconductors are perfectly diamagnetic below transition temperature. When small magnetic field is applied, it excludes all magnetic lines of force. They repel the magnetic lines of force, and it behaves as a diamagnetic substance. This is the fourth property. And the heavy currents, fifth one, when high currents are passed, again these high currents may generate a critical field, so the superconductivity can be destroyed. And the relation is IC is equal to 2 pi r Hc. IC is the critical current. At this current, it generates the critical magnetic field, so that the superconductivity can be destroyed. So IC is equal to 2 pi r Hc is the relation. This is the effect of the heavy current. then this you should remember isotopic effect. The transition temperatures are inversely proportional to square roots of atomic weights of isotopes of a single superconductor. Pc m to the power of half is constant. Just to remember this, nothing is there in it. All these are observations. And when high pressure is applied, transition temperatures also increases. So transition temperatures are directly proportional to pressure applied. So this is another property and effect of heat. So below transition temperature, when high magnetic field is applied, the material loses its superconductivity, and during this process it absorbs the heat energy. And when the applied field is removed, then again the material regains its superconductivity by giving out latent heat. So this is effect of heat. Then effect of crystal structure. The superconducting phenomena depends on crystal structure. So unit cell structure is also very important. White tin, which has tetragonal structure, is a superconductor, whereas gray tin, which is having cubic structure, is not a superconductor. And generally, good electrical conductors are bad superconductors. So these properties, according to the question, you should answer generally. You will be getting this question. And Meissner effect, short answer you will be getting. You prepare this one. So statement as well as diagram. So when a superconductor cooled below its transition temperature is placed in a uniform magnetic field, the magnetic flux is excluded from the material and it behaves as a diamagnet. This is called as Meissner effect. You take a superconductor, that means the temperature is below transition temperature. Then when a small magnetic field is applied, then these magnetic lines are repelled or excluded by the material, and it behaves as a perfect diamagnetic substance, and this is called as Meissner effect. The diagram for a normal conductor, even above transition temperature, they allow magnetic lines of force and the applied field is above critical field. But for a superconductor, the applied field is below critical field and temperature is below transition temperature. It excludes all magnetic lines of force, and it is a diamagnetic substance. So this is Meissner effect and small derivation. From the derivation, you can obtain susceptibility is -1. Negative value indicates that the material is diamagnetic substance. So Meissner effect you should prepare by short answer. Generally, you are getting this one. And basing on the properties, superconductors are classified into type 1 and type 2. Type 1, they exhibit complete Meissner effect. That means up to critical field, it excludes all magnetic lines of force and it behaves as a perfect superconductor. They obey magnetic Meissner effect. Whereas type 2 superconductors, an intermediate state is available. So when the applied field increases, it field the Hc1, which is called as the lower critical field, it starts from magnetic line starts penetrate this space, and this penetration continues up to Hc2, which is called as upper critical field. So a material is in the mixed state between Hc1 and Hc2. It possesses both electrical and superconducting properties, which is called as the voltage region. And after Hc2 only, it loses its superconductivity completely. It becomes a normal conductor. So with these graphs, this is for type 2 superconductor and this is for type 1. Only two states are available for type 1 superconductor, whereas for type 2, an intermediate or mixed state is also possible. As it is, this PPT you represent and with examples. So this is a classification of superconductors. And finally, BCS theory. So this is also describe or explain BCS theory you may get for 5 marks. You can't guess this what you will be getting. So these points you should write that. The general electrical resistance in ordinary metal is because of the collisions between conduction electrons and vibration of lattice ions. The vibrations are called as phonons. So whenever electron collides with a phonon, it loses its energy to the phonon, which is represented or reflected in terms of electrical resistance. But in the superconducting state, below transition temperature, the electrons they move in phase rather than individual. These are called as Cooper pairs. So once a Cooper pair is moving, when there exists an interaction between a first electron and the lattice ion, the first electron loses its energy to the lattice ion. So it's set into vibration. Because of that, a wave of excess positive charge will be given which attracts the second electron. That means the energy is given to the second one. So the net energy loss is zero. Like that, it can be propagated. This is the feature of BCS theory. And in this, whenever external magnetic field is applied, they gain additional kinetic energy, but they do not transfer the energy to the crystal lattice. As a consequence of this, the material it does not possess any electrical resistance and it behaves as a superconductor. So this is a prominent theory. For many materials, it is valid, but even for some composite alloys, there are certain deviations in BCS theory. But you write these points only, I think it will be sufficient. And The main challenge in superconductivity is the temperature, because many superconductors are available at very low temperature. So for any application, at least for above 100 Kelvin, if your material is there, then you can use it for an application. So another interesting area which is there in superconductivity is the high temperature superconductivity. So basically, if the temperature of a superconductor, generally transition temperature is above 90 Kelvin, then they are called as high temperature superconductors. And some examples are given for only for understanding sake. This is not required. But this classification, these are classified as 1 to 3 compounds, 1 to 4 cuprate superconductors, electron superconductors, and copper free oxide superconductors. Basing on the structure only. So how unit cell is there for these materials, so that they have transition temperatures more than 90 or 100 Kelvin. So this you should prepare notes, and these diagrams are not required, only just to mention what are 1 to 3 compounds, unit cell structure, what I gave in the PPT, 1 to 4 cuprate superconductors, electron superconductors, and copper free oxide superconductors. And the preparation is not there in the syllabus. You want to prepare for this. Applications of superconductors: power transmission, superconducting trains, magnetic levitation, supercomputers. At least 5 to 6 applications. Just you mention. Need not to explain. Just you mention. But don't write in a vague way. They are used in power transmission. They are used to store energy like that. It is specific in energy storage devices for making supercomputers, and in switches they can be used in the generation of high magnetic fields, in scanning machines. Many applications are there. Like that, you should mention applications of the superconducting material. I think this chapter is a scoring chapter for you. You have any doubts in this superconductivity, students?
Sir, preparation not there in portion.
Preparation is not there. Only I gave for understanding sake, preparation is not there. Only general properties of superconductors, then types of superconductors, BCS theory, high temperature superconductivity, the short notes maybe just to explain the unit cell with some examples, then applications of superconductors. These are there in high temperature superconductor. Next, what today? I think in the lasers, three important lasers are there: ruby laser, helium neon laser, and semiconducting laser. Just the construction working, these three will be getting. Derivation is Einstein coefficients. Only 4 essay questions are there, but you just prepare applications of lasers also. Generally, in short answer for anyone, applications of fiber optics or application of ferrites, application of solar cell or semiconductors or applications of lasers, you may get one question. You prepare for that. Any doubts in laser chapter? You have only 4 questions are there in laser. One is Einstein coefficients, and 3. One is ruby laser. Then you have gas laser and semiconducting laser, and you can't guess which is important, because technically the mechanism is different, but the same process is only excitation, achieving of population inversion, then de-excitation. Then you will be getting first initially spontaneous emission, then it becomes stimulated emission. More number of photons are released, and they stimulate the emission of further photons, so that a photon ray is produced along the tube or along the axis, which produces the laser. The principle is the same. Mechanisms are different. In the ruby laser, it is a solid crystal rod, and there are certain demerits, because it is only a pulse laser. Again, it is modified by a gas laser. Helium neon is taken in proper ratio, and high electric field is given. Ionization takes place. Helium ions initially get excited. Then these helium ions excites the neon atoms. Then neon atoms go to their metastable states. Then they de-excite, so that by emitting photons, these photons knock out few more atoms in the higher level. Those atoms come to the ground level by emitting similar photons. This number increases, a chain reaction is produced, a photon beam is produced. This is gas laser. And a semiconducting laser, it is a p-n junction diode operated in the forward bias arrangement, in which p-type holes of the p-type and electrons of the n-type they recombine in the junction region. This recombination energy is converting into optical pulses, optical energy. This is the basic principle. Ordinary germanium and silicon, they will not achieve this because they can't combine directly. For the recombination, involvement of lattice ions are required. Most of the recombination energy is given to the lattice. So a combination of third and fifth group elements are suitable for the fabrication of the semiconducting laser, like the gallium arsenide, gallium phosphide, like that. And also the depletion layer is selected in such a way that recombination should take place in that region, and also the photons should emit properly and guided properly in the same region, in the same depression region or active region. So a heterostructure is preferred. Instead of taking only a simple P and N, a series of P type and a series of N type will be taken. And the differences in band gaps, they confine the charge carriers in the active region, and the refractive indices are selected in such a way that after recombination, the optical energy is guided properly and emits as a laser. So this can be done simultaneously by taking this. So initially, whenever a small electric field is given, recombination is slow, but this process increases, rate of recombination increases, more number of optical pulses are released, photons are released, and the population inversion is achieved, and they produce laser light. This is semiconducting laser. So these three, among the three, you will need the diagram. You should explain what actually, and also Einstein coefficients. So the derivation is also very, very important. First, you should understand what is induced absorption, spontaneous emission, and stimulated emission. Then Einstein gave coefficients. First, you write the statements, then the relation between them using Planck's law. The derivation you have to practice. So sometimes, what is the principle behind laser? You write this only. Initially, by certain energy source, excitation takes place. Then population inversion is achieved. Then by de-excitation, by stimulated emission, lasers are produced. This mechanism you should write. So there is no derivation except the Einstein coefficients. There is no derivation in this chapter. Laser applications also you should just you go through this. You need to by heart just mention 4 or 5 applications. And coming to optical fiber, you may get some problem in numerical aperture and acceptance angle also. So fiber optics is a technology related to the transportation of light in guiding media. Generally, any information is converted into optical pulses. More information can be sent because the frequency is 10 to the power of 15 hertz, and without any much electromagnetic interference, the information can be sent. But a medium is required. Fiber optic is the medium. It is a long, very thin cylindrical structure which is based on the phenomenon of total internal reflection. So explain phenomenon of total propagation of light through an optical fiber is a short answer, and derive an expression for the numerical aperture. You may be get for 5 marks. Then optical fiber you have then types of optical fiber. This is also can be given for 5 marks only. Step index optical fiber and graded index optical fiber. Maybe fiber drawing process, double crucible method can be given as a essay question for 5 to 6 marks with a diagram. So it could be consisting of 2 crucibles. The core material in the cladding material is taken, and thermometer. So and the hard by very furnace is connected. They are initially melted, then can be done. Pulling drum is there. They with some pressure they pull this one so that initially core surrounded by cladding like that a fiber type material can be fabricated. So the double crucible method can be given as a part of a short question, essay question. Essay question again, suppose question 15 is there. In that you have A and B. In that A may be double crucible method, or A may be numerical aperture like that. You will be getting on in this. Then the types of optical fibers, step index optical fiber and graded index optical fiber. That also you write in applications of optical fibers. That is also important. Just I'll show that one. This is a fiber optics. This is introduction not required. The structure of optical fiber is important to practice this. Core, cladding. This diagram you should explain the construction of optical fiber. You should read the diagram. This is not required. You draw this one. The second one is not required. This is what is core cladding and silicon in first primary code, secondary code you should explain. And light propagation of light through an optical fiber is important. So it is a thin, transparent and flexible guiding medium. It is based on the phenomenon of total internal reflection. So with this diagram you should explain. Generally you are getting this question. Optical fiber, how a light of pulse can be propagated through an optical fiber. Principle of total internal reflection for understanding say just you with critical angle also. So this numerical aperture derivation is very, very important. In simple mathematics only, finally you can get sin alpha is the root of n1 square minus n2 square, where n1 and n2 are the refractive indices for core and cladding. So numerical aperture is sin alpha, that is root of n1 square minus n2 square. Just you go through the derivation, this PPT, I think it will be sufficient. And also acceptance angle, the concept. Only those values of alpha is allowed, so the total internal reflection takes place. So again, numerical aperture, it is represented by sin im, sin alpha, all are same, notation is different. In another one, it is n1 into under root 2 delta, where delta is the core cladding index. Only this derivation is there in this chapter. Then types of optical fiber, this is a general description. Only go to this single mode and multi mode. Only one pulse is allowed, it is a single mode optical fiber. If number of modes can be sent at a time, it is called as multi-mode optical fiber. Just you go through this. Basing on the fabrication, you have a step index optical fiber and gradient index optical fiber. This also, and pulse dispersion, better you avoid this. If you understood this, then otherwise bit complicated, don't go this is not required. Only what is pulse losses in optical fiber only, just to go through this, but don't go in detail. The PPT is given in detail, but I don't think so. But this double crucible method is you prepare for this double crucible method. The method is given even the PPT. Just I gave what you should write in the exam. It was developed by British Post Office. In this method, this will write actually. Two very high purity glass rods with different level refractive indices are prepared. Only these points you write, I think it will be sufficient. Only one diagram is sufficient. Go for this diagram, I think. This is clear, and this is for understanding sake. Practical design, this is not required. Attenuation optical fibers. Only power losses you write this one. That the previous one is not required. This is there. Only short answer you prepare attenuation. Don't give much importance to this. And applications of this optical fiber. Don't draw a diagram, but you explain in form of sentences. Because it's not MSET. While writing external exam, you should be very careful that for each and every step you should explain what actually it is. Suppose you are taking an equation. Example, numerical aperture is sin im, that is root of n1 square minus n2 square. Then you should explain what is n1 and n2. n1 and n2 are refractive indices for core and cladding, and im is the maximum acceptance angle. Like that, it's not MSET. At least you write concept for a given expression. Then you will get the full marks. This is the technique generally. Then even though some mistakes will be will occur even in derivation, probably you may not lose more marks. So explain the concept properly, and final expression, that is important. You will score full marks. Like that, you have to prepare for the exam. So one more chapter is there. Have one more thing. Class only 30 to 40 minutes I'll take, because electromagnetic field and wave mechanics I'll cover in one more class. Most likely Thursday. Tomorrow we have inspection. I am busy a little bit. If you are free, just you class representative inform me, so that I can take a class in Wednesday or Thursday. Your wish. What to say? Any doubts in these 4 chapters? Magnetic materials, superconductors. 5 to 10 minutes are there. You can interact. Lasers and optical fiber. And in dielectric materials, different types of polarizations. Electronic, ionic, orientation, space charge polarization with diagrams. PPT is sufficient that you prepare. That is one question. And sharing bridge method, the derivation, determination of dielectric constant you will get. And as a short answer for 4 or 5 marks, explain the temperature influence on dielectric constant or frequency dependence dielectric constant. You can write. And ferroelectricity, it is similar to ferromagnetism only. Ferroelectric hysteresis. These three are 4 questions you should prepare. Focus on types of polarization sharing trick method. Among the two, generally you will get. If you are not getting, don't blame me because we can't guess who will be giving paper. Okay, students, any doubts? Do you have further doubts in this? You can interact with me personally also if you are facing any problem. You can contact me. One minute. నా క్లాస్లో ఉన్న మళ్ళీ మాట్లాడతా. Yes, any doubts, students? Anyone respond from girls' side? Yes, boys, Tarun.
No, sir. No doubt.
Okay, have any notes? If you want one more class for electromagnetic theory and wave mechanics, you inform me at least half day before. I'll plan so that I can cover that. Because today even I can cover, but it won't go to your brain because I have in a surface level. I have explained the concepts. Once you go through the PPT, probably I think you can write the exam comfortably. Don't be panic. One unit you prepare thoroughly, so that at least 3 units you prepare thoroughly, you will be getting more than 60% marks, more than. But you want to score maximum marks, you should rate each and every topic. The questions what is given for passing the exam only. Suppose you are very lucky, then you may get all questions among the 10, but we can't say. So don't take chance.
Sir, what about hall ticket, sir?
What if hall ticket? It will be communicated to you because they will be downloading. You have 13th now, so maybe Saturday or Friday you will be getting your hall tickets. It will be communicated to you. You should come to college and they can collect your hall tickets. And ID cards will also be given that day. And you should bring all external lab answer scripts. Before that, just you take the printout and submit because you have to submit to Usma University. So without pen, you should submit. Otherwise, it will be a problem. Communicate to all your friends. While coming to the college, you submit the answer scripts of external lab exams like the physics, BWE, engineering, graphics, etc. Without pen. You communicate with your friends also. Any doubts further? Shall I stop? I have a meeting. So Thursday, mostly if you want the class on Wednesday, I'll engage. Tomorrow is not possible for me. Wednesday or Thursday, I can take class. Right, students, thank you. Do well in the exam.
Thank you, sir.
Right, Amma. Thank you.